Cristiano Ronaldo enters a seven-star luxury restaurant in the heart of the city, dressed in simple, slightly wrinkled clothes, like he just stepped out for a casual errand. He quietly picks a corner table, clearly trying not to draw attention, while golden chandeliers cast a soft glow across the opulent interior. But before he can even look at the menu, a waitress walks over with a smug smile and a condescending tone.
"Are you sure you can even afford this place?"
she says, loud enough for nearby guests to overhear. Ronaldo says in the same style.
"Are you sure I can't even afford this place?"
What happens next stuns everyone in the restaurant and uncovers a truth that flips the whole room upside down. Before we continue, tell us where you're watching from. And if you love dramatic real-life stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe, because tomorrow at 12:30 p.m., we've got another powerful episode waiting for you. The Imperial Flame restaurant was the crown jewel of Dubai's ultra-elite dining scene. Located on a high-end boulevard lined with Ferraris and Rolls-Royces, its massive windows overlooked a city of glowing towers and quiet power. Inside, everything was curated to scream wealth and status. This wasn't just a restaurant, it was a stage, and only the rich played on it. Shofie, one of the most experienced waitresses at Imperial Flame, glided across the dining room with the air of someone who knew she belonged. Her tightly pinned bun, flawless uniform, and perfectly rehearsed smile gave her an aura of confidence and control. Working here wasn't just a job for Shofie, it was a symbol of status. She often told people she served the world's richest and most powerful. But Shofie had a flaw, an oversized ego that slipped into judgment and arrogance. She had a habit of quickly sizing up customers by their looks, clothes, and attitude. People like that don't belong in here, she'd often think. Then the grand glass doors swung open, and in walked a man. He wore old jeans, a basic t-shirt. He moved quietly, almost invisibly, and walked straight to the host desk. What Shofie didn't know was that this was no ordinary man. It was Cristiano Ronaldo, one of the richest and most famous athletes in the world, who just happened to own the very restaurant she worked at. Shofie was standing at the reception desk, engaged in a conversation with another staff member about a high-profile VIP booking, when she noticed Ronaldo walking in. She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes narrowing as she scanned him with thinly veiled judgment. His look was far from the typical Imperial Flame clientele. Without even trying to hide her reaction, she tilted her head and gave him a slow, judgmental once-over, her eyes pausing on his slightly worn sneakers. "Good evening," she said with a dry, forced smile that vanished almost instantly. "How can I help you?" "I'd like a table, please," Ronaldo replied politely, his voice calm and steady. Shofie raised an eyebrow as though he had just said something ridiculous. Her expression practically screamed, "How dare you?" She crossed her arms, her fake smile dropping entirely. "Are you sure you're in the right place? This is a very exclusive restaurant." Ronaldo smiled gently, completely unfazed. "Yes, this is the place," he said simply. Shofie gave a short, mocking laugh and shook her head. "Okay, just a moment. I need to check something." She spun around abruptly and walked into the reception office without another word. Once inside, she exaggerated every keystroke while checking the reservation system, typing his name with theatrical flair. When nothing came up, she rolled her eyes dramatically and returned to the dining area, clearly annoyed. "Well, as I expected, you don't have a reservation," she said, her voice thick with sarcasm. "We do have a couple of tables open, but just so you know, this isn't a casual place." Still calm, Ronaldo replied, "I'd still like to dine here." Shofie sighed loudly and snatched a menu from the stand. "All right, but I'll need to seat you in a suitable area. Follow me." She walked through the restaurant briskly, not once checking if he was following. Instead of seating him near the golden-lit central space, where the wealthy basked in attention, she led him to the least impressive corner, a dimly lit area near the kitchen doors, where the clatter of dishes and voices from staff broke the restaurant's elegant atmosphere. "Here you go. This table should do," she said, plopping the menu down carelessly. "I think you'll feel more comfortable here. It's private." Ronaldo glanced around, then at Shofie, his calm smile still intact. "Thank you," he said softly. Sophie crossed her arms and squinted, trying to figure out if he was being sarcastic or just clueless. "You're welcome," she replied, her tone thick with sarcasm. "Just so you know, we usually reserve these tables for special cases. But since no one booked it tonight, it's all yours." She spun on her heel and walked off without giving him a chance to respond. When she returned to take his order, her attitude had grown colder. She pulled out her notepad with theatrical flair and shot a dismissive glance at Ronaldo. "Have you decided what you'd like?" she asked, her voice dripping with boredom. "Or would you prefer a suggestion?" Ronaldo calmly looked at the menu and pointed to one of the most expensive main dishes on the list. "I'd like to try this one," he said. Sophie stifled a laugh, covering her mouth like she was trying to hold back a joke. "Oh, of course, the filet de Rossini, huh?" she said with a smirk. "Just to be clear, sir, this dish costs $350. Ronaldo nodded, his calm expression unwavering. "Yes, it sounds great." Sophie tilted her head, her lips curling into a sarcastic smile. "All right then, just so there are no misunderstandings later," she said sharply. "You might want to double-check the prices. We wouldn't want any unpleasant surprises." Still unbothered, Ronaldo responded gently. "I'm certain." Sophie sighed dramatically as if granting him a huge favor and scribbled the order. "Very well, as you wish. But just so you know, our chef prefers this dish to be enjoyed by people who actually appreciate fine dining. I hope it meets your expectations." She turned on her heels to leave, but suddenly paused and glanced back. "Oh, and one more thing. The minimum tip expected here is 20%. Keep that in mind while you enjoy." As he waited, Ronaldo appeared completely unaffected by Sophie's passive-aggressive remarks. He looked around, taking in the decor and the soothing live music from the pianist nearby. When the appetizer arrived, Sophie set the plate down with unnecessary force, causing it to slide slightly on the table. "Here's your appetizer. I hope you enjoy it, or at least know what you're eating," she added with a smirk. Ronaldo responded politely. "Thank you." Sophie leaned in a little, trying to provoke a reaction. "You know, a lot of guests who order this dish end up hating it. It's not exactly mainstream, but I'm sure you'll manage. Good luck." Ronaldo looked up at her with the same composed smile. "It looks excellent. Thank you for your attention." Frustrated by his calm demeanor, Sophie turned abruptly and walked away, muttering to a colleague, "He won't even make it to the main course. He'll ask for the check the moment he sees the bill." Meanwhile, Ronaldo quietly enjoyed his appetizer, unhurried and poised. From across the dining room, Sophie stood with her arms crossed, watching him. A smug smile crept onto her face. "I bet he's going to ask for tap water," she whispered to another waitress. "These types always do." The other staff member didn't respond, clearly uncomfortable. However, seated a few tables away, an elderly gentleman in a navy blue suit had been silently observing the entire interaction. He lifted his wine glass and gave a respectful toast in Ronaldo's direction. Ronaldo caught the gesture and nodded back with a warm smile. Dinner had just begun, but Sophie's attitude wasn't going to go unnoticed for long. After taking Ronaldo's order, Sophie decided it was time to teach him a lesson. Instead of delivering the order promptly, she took her time, choosing to attend only to the guests she believed deserved priority. She laughed dramatically at jokes from a wealthy couple, chatted with a high-profile guest at another table, and even delivered a cocktail to someone outside her assigned section. All the while, Ronaldo waited, quietly, patiently. Each time he looked her way, Sophie would walk faster, avoiding eye contact and pretending to be busy, making it clear she was intentionally delaying. Eventually, an elderly man, the same one who had toasted earlier, got up and walked over to Ronaldo's table. Dressed neatly and with a kind smile, he spoke gently. "Good evening, young man. I hope I'm not intruding, but I've noticed you've been overlooked." Ronaldo smiled. "Good evening. No worries at all." The man leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "You know, being treated this way is sometimes a test of patience. And I must say, your composure is impressive. It says a lot." Before Ronaldo could respond, Sophie suddenly appeared, interrupting the moment. "Sir, "Can I help you with something?" she asked the older gentleman, her voice noticeably more polished, but still laced with condescension. "We wouldn't want you disturbing our other guests." The elderly man narrowed his eyes slightly but remained calm. "Don't worry, Mississippi. I was just greeting this gentleman. It's rare to meet someone with such grace." Sophie let out a loud sigh and motioned him back to his table. "Of course, as you wish." "Well, perhaps you should return to your table and enjoy your dinner," Sophie said, her tone sharp and impatient. Ronaldo simply observed the moment, his face calm, his gaze quietly analytical. "Thank you for coming over," he said to the elderly man, nodding slightly. "It was a pleasure speaking with you." The gentleman nodded in return and walked back to his table, but not before throwing one last disappointed glance toward Sophie, who remained entirely indifferent. When Sophie finally brought Ronaldo's main course, she made sure to take her time. She chatted with the chefs in the kitchen while letting the plate sit under the warming lamp, and then wandered off to serve another table, completely ignoring the dish that was ready. When she eventually delivered it, she dropped the plate in front of Ronaldo with an abrupt motion. "Here's your order. I hope you enjoy it," she said, her tone full of irony. "Oh, and if it's not to your taste, let us know. We can always prepare something more affordable." Still composed, Ronaldo replied, "It looks excellent. Thank you." Sophie leaned in slightly and whispered just loud enough for him to hear. "Are you sure? It's a very sophisticated dish. Might be difficult for someone who isn't used to it." "I'm sure," Ronaldo answered serenely. "Thank you for your concern." Frustrated once again, Sophie stormed off toward the bar. Speaking to a coworker who was clearly trying to ignore her, she said, "He's pretending to be polite, but it's obvious he's uncomfortable." She placed an empty glass on the counter. "He probably doesn't even know what he's eating. These types always come in trying to act important and just embarrass themselves." Her coworker forced a weak smile. "Maybe he just wants to have dinner, Sophie. Maybe we should treat him like any other guest." Sophie blinked in disbelief. "Like any other guest? Did you see the sneakers he's wearing? He doesn't belong here. And honestly, if he can't handle the atmosphere, he shouldn't have stepped in." Meanwhile, the same couple who had been watching everything exchanged whispers. "She's awful," the woman said, shaking her head. "He's being so polite, but she keeps trying to humiliate him." "It's disgraceful," the man added, frowning. "I think we should speak to the manager." Back at his table, Ronaldo calmly finished his main course. He glanced around, noticing the concerned looks from other guests, but his face remained unbothered. When Sophie returned to collect the plate, her expression still radiated disdain. "So, how was it?" she asked with a fake smile. "Did it meet your expectations?" Ronaldo looked her directly in the eyes and said, "It was excellent. Thank you. Please compliment the chefs. They did an impeccable job." Sophie raised her eyebrows, surprised that she still couldn't get a rise out of him. As she walked away, she muttered loud enough to be heard, "He might be smiling now, but let's see if he still is when the bill comes." Seated quietly, Ronaldo wore a small smile. His gaze suggested that the moment to act was getting closer. Sophie, growing desperate to shake his composure, brought out the coffee he had ordered, and used it as an excuse to go further. Speaking loudly enough for several tables to hear, she said to a colleague, "You know, it's really hard to maintain standards when just anyone thinks they can walk in." She cast a sharp look toward Ronaldo. Her colleague, clearly uncomfortable, tried to change the subject. "Sophie, maybe just..." But she cut him off. "That's why we have a reservation system. It helps avoid situations like this." Now, nearby patrons were turning heads. Some frowned, others whispered in disbelief. The couple from before looked visibly upset. "This is outrageous," the woman muttered. "She's trying to humiliate him publicly." The elderly man in the navy suit took a sip of wine, his expression now a firm scowl. "This has gone too far," he muttered. Still seated, Ronaldo scanned the room with tranquil confidence. His peaceful presence only seemed to unsettle Sophie more, as she could now feel the attention shifting onto her. A well-dressed woman 2 tables away leaned toward her companion. "He must be someone important to stay this calm," she whispered. "Or maybe he's just stronger than she realizes," the man replied, eyes fixed on Ronaldo. Determined to finally provoke something, Sophie returned to his table. Her words were dipped in venom disguised as sweetness. "I hope you're enjoying your experience," she said with a fake smile. "It's always interesting to have different kinds of people here. Adds a unique touch to the atmosphere." Ronaldo looked up at her steadily, his voice calm but sharp. "Different? Could you explain what you mean by that?" Sophie let out a nervous little laugh, trying to hold her ground. "Oh, don't take it the wrong way. It's just, well, our usual guests have a more traditional profile. It's rare to see someone with your style here." A hush fell across the dining room. Conversations paused. All eyes turned toward the table. Sophie, misreading the moment, looked oddly proud, believing she had control of the room. Ronaldo held her gaze for a few moments, calm but firm. His face remained composed, completely free of anger, yet it carried unmistakable authority. Finally he spoke. "You're right. Maybe I should handle this differently." Sophie blinked, confused by his response. But before she could speak again, the restaurant manager appeared. A well-dressed, middle-aged man with perfect posture and quiet authority. The manager scanned the room and instantly felt the tension. Then his eyes landed on Ronaldo. His entire expression changed. Shock followed by immediate recognition. He hurried toward the table, completely ignoring Sophie. "Mr. Ronaldo," the manager exclaimed, his voice filled with respect. "I had no idea you'd be dining with us today. Please, let me know if there's anything I can do for you." Sophie turned pale. The blood drained from her face as she watched the scene unfold. Her eyes darted from the manager to Ronaldo in total disbelief. Ronaldo held the manager's gaze a moment, then calmly turned back to Sophie. "Now," he said, his voice still soft but unmistakably commanding. "Let's talk about how people are treated here." A hushed silence fell across the restaurant. Every guest had their eyes locked on Ronaldo's table. The manager, a man known for his calm professionalism, looked visibly shaken. He leaned slightly toward Ronaldo in a show of respect. "Mr. Ronaldo, I sincerely apologize for the delay in recognizing you. It's an absolute honor to have you here. Please tell me how I can make this right." Sophie, who just moments ago thought she had the upper hand, stood frozen. Her mind raced. "Mr. Ronaldo?" she thought. "Wait, he knows him? What is going on?" Ronaldo looked at the manager and gave a small smile. "Thank you, but no need to worry. I'm fine. I would, however, like a short conversation with your staff, if that's okay." The manager's expression changed instantly. He could sense this wasn't just about poor service. "Of course, Mr. Ronaldo. Anything you need." Then he turned to Sophie, his eyes sharp and disapproving. Sophie stood by, pale and visibly uncomfortable. She began to stammer. I didn't know. I thought." The manager cut her off, his voice controlled but stern. "Thought what, Sophie? That this guest, who also happens to be one of the owners of this restaurant, didn't deserve the same respect as anyone else." His words landed like a hammer. Sophie's face flushed with embarrassment. He didn't say who he was. And he looked." She stopped mid-sentence, realizing that anything more would only dig her deeper. Ronaldo finally spoke again. His voice was calm but carried weight. "There's no need for me to declare who I am to be treated with basic respect. It shouldn't matter what someone wears. Every guest who walks through these doors deserves to be welcomed with dignity." The entire dining room was frozen. Patrons murmured softly, stunned by the revelation that Cristiano Ronaldo owned the restaurant. The couple who had been watching the ordeal looked visibly pleased. The elderly gentleman gave a slow, approving nod. Guests leaned toward each other, whispering. "I knew there was something different about him," a man said to his wife. "He has this presence, and look how he's handling it, with such grace." The woman nodded. "I hope she learned something from this." Others in the room looked uneasy, some clearly regretting that they hadn't spoken up earlier. The air was tense but full of anticipation. All eyes were on the manager, who turned back to Sophie. His voice low yet firm. Sophie, I want a detailed explanation of your behavior after your shift. For now, please step away from this table. I'll handle it from here. Sophie opened her mouth to protest, but the look in the manager's eyes silenced her instantly. Without another word, she turned and walked away quickly, avoiding the stares from diners. Ronaldo took a deep breath and stood. The room watched in complete silence. He scanned the space slowly, his tone calm but filled with quiet authority. This restaurant was built on one principle: that everyone, no matter how they dress or where they come from, should feel welcome here. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case tonight. But I believe we can all learn from this. The dining room remained quiet, his words sinking in. The manager looked both uneasy and deeply respectful of the way Ronaldo handled the situation. Ronaldo turned to him and added, "I'd like to speak with the full team after service. There are a few things we need to address." The manager nodded immediately. "Of course, Mr. Ronaldo. And once again, my deepest apologies." Ronaldo sat back down. Slowly, the dining room began to return to normal. But the atmosphere had changed. Conversations buzzed at low volume. Everyone was talking about what they had just witnessed. The once bustling Imperial Flame was now silent with reflection. The staff gathered quietly in the main dining area of Imperial Flame, the restaurant now closed for the night. At the center stood Cristiano Ronaldo, his presence commanding the room without a single word. He glanced around the space, locking eyes with each employee one by one, not to intimidate but to connect. His gaze carried no anger, just a calm strength and an unwavering resolve. Then he spoke. "We all make mistakes," he began, his voice firm but compassionate. "But what really matters is what we do after." A hush settled over the room. No one looked away. "What happened earlier tonight wasn't just about bad service," Ronaldo continued. "It was about quick assumptions, unconscious bias, and a moment where empathy was missing." He paused, letting the weight of those words land. His eyes shifted to Sophie, who sat at the back, eyes glassy, face red from tears. "Sophie," he said, his tone neither scolding nor soft, just sincere. "You made a mistake. And mistakes, when owned and learned from, can become turning points. What you do next will define who you are." Sophie looked up slowly, visibly shaken but listening. Ronaldo turned to address the rest of the team, his voice gentler but still purposeful. "In this world, it's easy to judge people by what we see: clothes, cars, accents, where they sit in a restaurant. But let me ask you something. What happens when we choose kindness instead of judgment?" He stepped forward slightly, slipping his hands into his pockets. His voice became more reflective. "Everyone here is carrying something. Struggles you can't see. Some walk in with heavy hearts, others with silent battles. The person who doesn't fit your idea of a VIP might be someone who's achieved more than you can imagine." The room stayed still. Some staff members had tears in their eyes. Others lowered their gaze, clearly reflecting on their own assumptions. "The kindness you show," Ronaldo said, "especially when it feels undeserved, could be the one moment that turns someone's day or their life around." Sophie finally lifted her head. Her voice was faint but full of remorse. I never saw it like that. I was so focused on appearances, on keeping things perfect, that I forgot the most important thing." She looked directly at Ronaldo, her eyes shimmering. "I forgot that everyone has value. I'm sorry. I want to change. I will change." Ronaldo nodded once, offering her a small but warm smile. "That promise isn't to me, Sophie. It's to yourself. And if you truly mean it, you're already on your way." She gave a soft, shaky nod, grateful and determined. Ronaldo turned to the team again. "Kindness isn't about grand gestures. It's in the way we speak, the way we listen, the way we look at people. That's what defines this place, not just the food or the lighting or the uniforms. It's the people." The manager stepped forward quietly. "Mr. Ronaldo, your message is loud and clear. I promise you will do better. Imperial Flame will reflect the values you just reminded us of." Ronaldo gave a simple nod and turned toward the exit. Outside, the Beverly Hills streets glowed under the night sky. Ronaldo paused just before stepping into the quiet, turning to look once more at the restaurant's entrance. A faint smile touched his face, because he knew tonight wasn't just about a meal or a misunderstanding. It was about something bigger, about empathy, respect, humanity. As he walked down the lit-up streets, he reflected not only on what had happened, but on what he hoped people would remember. If there was one message to take from that night, it would be this: in a world where you can be anything, choose to be kind. True strength isn't found in judgment, but in compassion. And it's in the small, everyday choices we make that we shape not just the world, but who we truly are.